Daniel Moore stared at his phone, his newborn son crying softly against his chest. The message glowed in the dim light of the bus station. I can't do this anymore. I need a different life. Don't look for me. His hands trembled. Around him, strangers rushed past, oblivious to the man whose entire world had just collapsed in 3 sentences. He looked down at Caleb, barely 2 months old, then back at the empty bench where Marissa had been sitting just minutes ago. She was gone. No explanation, no warning, no goodbye, just a text message and the echo of her footsteps disappearing into the night. Daniel pressed his son closer, fighting back tears he couldn't afford to shed. Because in that moment, holding that fragile life in his arms, he realized something terrifying. He was completely alone, completely broke, and completely responsible for a child he had no idea how to raise by himself. And that's where his story truly began. Before we dive deeper, please, if you're listening to this right now, I want to prove my mom wrong. She said I can't even reach 5,000 subscribers. Help me show her that stories like this matter. Subscribe to King's Folklore, and let's keep breathing life into tales that refuse to die. Now, let's continue. Daniel Moore had never felt cold like this before. It wasn't just the November wind cutting through the bus station's open corridors. It was the cold that comes from the inside, the kind that starts in your chest and spreads until even your thoughts feel frozen. He sat on the metal bench, Caleb bundled in his arms, and read the message again and again, as if the words might rearrange themselves into something that made sense. Asterisk, I can't do this anymore. I need a different life. Don't look for me. Asterisk, 30 minutes ago, they'd been a family. Marissa had been sitting right beside him, quiet but present. They were supposed to be taking the overnight bus to her mother's house in Georgia, a trip to get help, to figure things out, to survive the financial storm that had been drowning them for months. Daniel had stepped away for maybe 5 minutes, just to buy formula and diapers from the convenience store across the street. When he came back, her bags were gone. Her jacket was gone. Only Caleb remained, sleeping in the carrier on the bench. And that text message, "Excuse me, sir." A security guard approached, eyeing him with that mix of concern and suspicion. "You been here a while? Everything okay?" Daniel looked up, his vision blurred. "My wife, she just—" The words wouldn't come. How do you explain that the person you trusted most in the world just evaporated? The guard's expression softened. "You got somewhere to go tonight?" Daniel shook his head. The truth was brutal and simple. They'd already been evicted from their apartment 2 weeks ago. Everything they owned fit into 2 duffel bags and a diaper bag. The bus tickets had been purchased with the last $73 from his final paycheck, before the warehouse job let him go for missing too many shifts. Missing shifts because Marissa kept saying she couldn't handle being alone with the baby, because she kept having panic attacks, because she kept saying she needed him home. And now she was gone. "There's a shelter about 4 blocks north," the guard said gently. "They take families. You should head there before it gets later." Daniel nodded, but he didn't move. Caleb stirred in his arms, making those small sounds that meant he'd be fully awake and hungry soon. Daniel looked down at his son's face, so small, so unaware that his entire world had just been cut in half. "Why would she do this?" he whispered to no one. He tried calling her, straight to voicemail. He tried texting. The messages turned green. She'd already blocked him. The station began to empty as the last evening buses departed. Daniel finally stood, his legs unsteady, and gathered their bags. The shelter was 4 blocks away. 4 blocks felt like 4 miles. The November night bit at his face as he walked. Caleb pressed against his chest, inside his jacket for warmth. He passed couples laughing outside restaurants. He passed families loading into warm cars. He passed a life that felt impossibly far away now. The shelter was full. "I'm sorry," the woman at the desk said, and she genuinely looked it. "We're over capacity. There's another place on Riverside, but they stop intake at 9, and it's already 8:45. Daniel glanced at the clock. Even if he ran, he wouldn't make it. "Is there anywhere?" His voice cracked. "I have a baby." She wrote down an address. "This church sometimes opens their basement for emergencies. No promises, but knock on the side door. Ask for Pastor Mike." He walked another 20 minutes. Caleb started crying, the hungry cry that meant he needed to be fed now. Daniel stopped under a streetlight, balanced his son carefully, and prepared a bottle with shaking hands. The November wind kept blowing the warmth away. As Caleb drank, Daniel felt something break loose inside his chest. Not tears, something deeper. A sound came out of him that he didn't recognize. A sound of complete helplessness. A couple walking past crossed to the other side of the street. The church basement was locked. Daniel knocked for 10 minutes before accepting no one was coming. He walked back toward downtown, no destination in mind, just moving to stay warm. Near midnight, he found himself in a 24-hour diner parking lot. He sat in the back corner, away from the lights, and tried to think. His phone battery was at 12%. He had $8 in his pocket. Caleb needed more formula by morning. He needed diapers. He needed a plan. Daniel opened his phone and scrolled through his contacts. His parents had passed away in a car accident 3 years ago. The insurance money had paid for the funeral and nothing more. Marissa's family had cut her off when she married him against their wishes. His friends, most had drifted away when he couldn't afford to hang out anymore, when every conversation became about money stress and baby exhaustion. There was one number he'd avoided calling. Marcus, his college roommate. They hadn't spoken in almost 2 years, not since Daniel borrowed $200 and took 8 months to pay it back. He dialed before he could overthink it. Daniel. Marcus answered on the 4th ring, voice thick with sleep. Man, it's midnight. What's? She left. The words tumbled out. Marissa left. At the bus station. Just walked away. I have Caleb, and nowhere to go and I. Whoa, slow down. What do you mean she left? Daniel explained, his voice barely holding together. There was a long silence on the other end. Listen, Marcus finally said. I'm in Atlanta now. Got married last year, wife's pregnant. We're tight on space and money ourselves, man. I wish I could. I'm not asking for money, Daniel interrupted. I needed to tell someone. I needed someone to know this happened. Another pause. You gonna be okay? Daniel looked down at Caleb, now sleeping again, completely trusting, completely dependent. I don't know, he admitted, but I don't have a choice. After they hung up, Daniel sat in that parking lot until 3 a.m., watching his son sleep, watching his phone battery die, watching the night refuse to end. When the diner staff asked him to leave, he walked to his car, a 1997 Honda Civic that barely started. It was parked on a side street 6 blocks away, everything they owned stuffed in the trunk and back seat. He made a bed in the back seat with their clothes, created a safe space for Caleb with the pillows, and climbed in beside his son. The car was cold. The street was dark. His entire body ached with exhaustion. But as Daniel lay there, listening to Caleb breathe, something shifted. The shock began to harden into something else. Something that felt like steel forming in his spine. She had chosen to walk away. He was choosing to stay. And somehow, someway, he would make sure that choice mattered. That Caleb would never feel abandoned again. That this night, this horrible, impossible night, would be the lowest point and everything after would be the climb back up. He didn't know how yet, but he would figure out, because there was no other option. Have you ever had a moment where everything fell apart and you realized the only way forward was to become someone completely different? That's where Daniel was. Rock bottom, with nowhere to go but up. But the climb? That was going to cost him everything. The first month was survival. Daniel learned things no parenting book teaches you. He learned which gas station bathrooms had changing tables. He learned which grocery stores threw out nearly expired baby food that was still perfectly safe. He learned how to heat a bottle using hot water from a McDonald's coffee dispenser. He learned which parking lot security guards wouldn't kick you out of at 2 a.m. He learned how to function on 3 hours of sleep. How to job hunt with a baby strapped to your chest. How to smile during interviews and pretend you weren't living in your car. Most importantly, he learned that rock bottom has a basement. 2 weeks after Marissa left, his car broke down. The transmission gave out on a Tuesday morning, smoke pouring from under the hood on the way to a job interview. Daniel sat on the curb, Caleb crying in his arms, and watched a tow truck driver quote him $1,200 for repairs. He had $43 to his name. That night, they slept in a park. Daniel stayed awake the entire time, alert to every sound, every shadow. When the sun finally rose, he made a decision that changed everything. He sold the car for scrap, got $300, used $200 to pay for a week in a motel room that rented by the hour but didn't ask questions. He spent the remaining $100 on a suit from Goodwill, a gym membership for showers, and a pack of disposable razors. Then he walked into every business within a 5-mile radius and asked for work. The owner of a local construction supply warehouse took a chance on him, probably because Daniel showed up at 6 a.m., suit wrinkled from sleeping in it, Caleb strapped to his chest, and said 7 words that somehow mattered. "I'll do anything. I won't quit." The job paid $9 an hour. It wasn't enough. Not even close. So Daniel took a second job washing dishes at a diner from 6 p.m. to midnight. Then a third job cleaning office buildings from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. He catnapped in between shifts with Caleb beside him. A kind waitress at the diner, named Gloria, started watching Caleb during Daniel's evening shifts, refusing payment but accepting gratitude. "My son was raised by a village," she told him once. "Now you're part of mine." Daniel slept 4 hours a day for 6 months straight. His body screamed. His mind begged for rest. But every time he wanted to quit, he looked at Caleb and remembered that text message. "I can't do this anymore." Well, he could. He had to. By month 7, Daniel had saved enough to rent a tiny studio apartment in the roughest part of town. The building had roaches and paper-thin walls and a landlord who fixed nothing. But it had a roof. It had a door that locked. It had an address he could put on job applications. It was home. Daniel started studying at night. Free online courses in business management and digital marketing. While Caleb slept, Daniel learned about supply chains, profit margins, customer acquisition. He didn't know why exactly, just that he knew he couldn't stay at the bottom forever. His manager at the warehouse, a gruff man named Ray, noticed. "You're different from the other guys," Ray said one afternoon. "Most people take this job until something better comes along. You take this job like you're studying it." Daniel shrugged. "I'm trying to understand how things work." Ray studied him for a moment. "My brother runs a logistics company. They're looking for someone to manage their inventory system. Pays better. You interested?" That conversation changed Daniel's trajectory. The logistics job paid $15 an hour. Not great, but enough to quit the midnight cleaning job. More importantly, it taught Daniel the inner workings of supply chain management. He absorbed everything like a man dying of thirst. Within a year, he was promoted to operations coordinator. Caleb started daycare. Not the fancy kind, the kind run by retired teachers in their homes who charged what they could afford. But it was safe, warm, and filled with love. Caleb began to thrive. Daniel didn't date, didn't go out, didn't have hobbies. Every spare moment went into either Caleb or self-improvement. He took online certification courses. He networked at industry meetups. He saved every extra dollar like his life depended on it. Because it did. By year 3, Daniel saw an opportunity. The logistics company he worked for was losing clients because their tracking system was outdated and inefficient. Daniel spent 3 months building a better solution in his spare time, teaching himself basic coding through YouTube videos and free online resources. When he presented it to his boss, the response was lukewarm. "It's good, Daniel, but we don't have budget for new software right now." So Daniel made another decision that terrified him. He quit his job and started his own company. With $7,000 in savings, money that was supposed to be Caleb's emergency fund, Daniel launched more logistics solutions from his studio apartment. His first client was a small medical supply company that was desperate enough to take a chance on a one-man operation. The first 6 months were brutal. Daniel went back to sleeping 4 hours a night. He took contract jobs on the side to keep food on the table. There were weeks when he had to choose between paying for internet or buying Caleb new shoes. But slowly, painfully, the business grew. 1 client became 3. 3 became 7. Daniel hired his first employee, Gloria's nephew, who needed a break just like Daniel once did. 7 clients became 15. By year 4, More Logistics Solutions was managing supply chains for 23 companies across 3 states. Daniel moved into a small office space, hired 3 more employees, moved Caleb and himself into a 2-bedroom apartment in a safe neighborhood with good schools. Caleb started kindergarten. He was bright, curious, and happy. a child who knew nothing about bus stations or cold nights in cars. He knew bedtime stories and Saturday morning pancakes, and a father who never missed a school event. Daniel had kept his promise. Caleb never felt abandoned. But something else had happened during those 5 years. Daniel had changed. The soft edges had been burned away. He'd become disciplined, focused, and unbreakable. He'd learned that success wasn't about talent or luck. It was about refusing to quit when quitting was the only logical option. He'd become the kind of man who could build something from nothing. The kind of man who could forgive but would never forget. The kind of man who no longer needed anyone to complete him. By year 5, Daniel's company was generating 7 figures in revenue. He bought a modest house in a neighborhood where kids rode bikes on the sidewalks. He drove a reliable car. Nothing flashy, just something that would never break down on the way to a job interview. Caleb was thriving. Daniel was stable. The nightmare that started at a bus station felt like someone else's story. And then, on a random Tuesday afternoon in October, Daniel took Caleb to the grocery store. And there she was, Marissa, standing in the checkout line, looking tired in a way that had nothing to do with physical exhaustion. Her hair was different. Her clothes looked worn. Her eyes had that hollow quality of someone who'd been running toward something and found only emptiness. Their eyes met across the store. Daniel felt Caleb's hand tighten around his own. And in that moment, 5 years of silence ended. What would you do if you came face to face with the person who destroyed you? The person who left you with nothing but a text message and a crying baby? Would you walk away? Would you confront them? Would you finally get the answers you never got? Daniel was about to find out. And what happened next would answer the question that had haunted him for 5 years. Why? Time stopped. The grocery store sounds, beeping scanners, squeaking carts, Muzak playing overhead, all faded into white noise. Daniel stood frozen in the cereal aisle, Caleb's small hand still gripped in his, watching the woman who had once been his entire world become a stranger in real time. Marissa's shopping basket slipped from her fingers. It hit the floor with a hollow thud, a can of soup rolling away across the tiles. She took a step forward, stopped. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Daniel found his voice first. It came out calmer than he expected. Steady. Marissa. Daniel. Her voice cracked on his name. Her eyes dropped to Caleb, and something shattered across her face. Oh my God. Caleb. The little boy pressed closer to his father's leg, uncertain. He was 5 now, almost 6, old enough to sense tension, but too young to understand it. His world was soccer practice and cartoon marathons, and his dad's terrible pancakes on Sunday mornings. This woman was a stranger to him. You don't remember me, do you, baby? Marissa whispered, taking another step closer. Her hand reached out, trembling. Caleb hid behind Daniel's leg completely now. He doesn't know you, Daniel said quietly. The words landed like stones in still water. No malis, just truth. Marissa's hand dropped. Tears spilled down her cheeks, and she didn't bother wiping them away. I tried to come back. A year later, I tried. But you'd moved, and I couldn't find you, and I thought maybe it was better that way. That you'd both moved on without me. Daniel felt something twist in his chest. Not the sharp pain of 5 years ago, but something duller. Something like pity. You tried once? He asked. In 5 years, you tried once. I was broken, Daniel. Her voice rose, defensive now, desperate. I was drowning. I had postpartum depression. I was scared. I was 19 years old with a baby and no money and no future, and I was 21. Daniel's voice remained level, but there was steel underneath. Same situation, same fear, same baby. But I didn't leave. The words hung in the air between them. Other shoppers were starting to notice the scene. An older woman paused with her cart, concern on her face. A teenage employee pretended to organize King Goods while clearly listening. Marissa wrapped her arms around herself. I know what I did was unforgivable. I've hated myself every single day since that night. But you don't understand what it felt like. You're right, Daniel interrupted softly. I don't understand what it felt like to walk away. I only understand what it felt like to be left. He knelt down to Caleb's level, his voice gentling immediately. Hey, buddy, can you go grab us a box of the chocolate cereal? The one with the monkey on it. Caleb hesitated, glancing between his father and the crying woman. It's okay, Daniel assured him. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. Those last 4 words made Marissa flinch. Caleb nodded and scurried off, staying within eyesight but far enough away to give them space. Daniel stood back up, meeting Marissa's eyes. What happened to you? After you left? She laughed bitterly. What I thought would be freedom. I went to California with a guy I barely knew. Thought we'd start fresh, start some amazing new life. He left me 3 months later. I've been working restaurant jobs ever since, moving from city to city, trying to find, I don't even know what. Something that felt like happiness, I guess. Did you find it? No. The word was barely a whisper. I found regret. Every day, every single day, I thought about you both, about what I threw away. She looked past him at Caleb, who was carefully reading cereal boxes. He's beautiful. He looks just like you. He's smart too, Daniel said, and there was pride in his voice now. Reading at a 2nd grade level already. Loves dinosaurs and soccer. Wants to be a paleontologist this week. Last week, it was an astronaut. He paused. He's happy, Marissa. He's loved. He's stable. Because of you, she said, her voice breaking again. You did it all without me. I didn't have a choice. Yes, you did. She stepped closer, her voice urgent now. You could have given him up, put him in foster care. You could have walked away too, but you didn't. You chose him. Daniel nodded slowly. Every single day, even on the days when I was so tired I couldn't see straight. Even when we were sleeping in my car. Even when I had to choose between eating dinner or buying him diapers. I chose him. You slept in your car? The horror in her voice was genuine. For 2 months. Then a park. Then a motel that rented by the week. He watched her process this information, watched the weight of it settle on her shoulders. I worked 3 jobs, showered at a gym, fed him before I fed myself. And I did it all while you were in California finding yourself. Marissa covered her face with her hands. Her shoulders shook with silent sobs. A part of Daniel, the part that had loved her once, wanted to comfort her. But a stronger part, the part that had been forged in those impossible years, knew that some pain had to be felt fully to be understood. Why are you telling me this? She asked through her tears. To make me feel worse? To punish me? No, Daniel said, and he meant it. I'm telling you so you understand what love actually is. It's not a feeling that comes and goes. It's not something you do when it's easy and convenient. Love is a choice you make when everything in you wants to quit. When every logical reason says to walk away. That's when love matters. He glanced over at Caleb, who was now holding 2 cereal boxes, trying to decide between them. I stopped being angry at you about 3 years ago, Daniel continued. I realized anger was just weighing me down, and I couldn't carry it and carry him at the same time. So I let it go. I forgave you. Marissa looked up, hope flickering in her wet eyes. You forgave me? Yes. He paused. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean undoing consequences. You made a choice that night at the bus station. That choice has consequences. Caleb doesn't know you. He doesn't need you in his life now. He's already stable, already happy. And honestly, after everything we survived, I don't need you either. The hope in her eyes died. I'm not saying this to be cruel, Daniel said gently. I'm saying it because it's true. You wanted a different life 5 years ago. Well, you got it. And I built a different life too. One where Caleb comes home to bedtime stories and homework help, and a father who will never, ever leave him at a bus station. Can I see him sometimes? Write to him? Something. Daniel considered this. He looked at Caleb, his son, his reason for everything, the child who only knew love and safety and consistency. When he's older, Daniel finally said, when he's old enough to understand, to ask questions, to decide for himself if he wants to know you, then I'll tell him the truth. All of it. The good and the bad. And if he wants to meet you, I won't stop him. But that's his choice, not mine. And definitely not yours. Marissa nodded, tears still streaming. That's fair. That's more than fair. Daddy, Caleb called out, holding up both cereal boxes. Can we get both? Daniel smiled. The kind of smile that had become natural over 5 years of choosing joy over bitterness. Sure, buddy. It's a special day. We can get both. As Caleb celebrated this small victory with a fist pump, Daniel turned back to Marissa one last time. "I hope you find what you're looking for," he said, and he genuinely meant it. "I hope you heal. I hope you build a good life. But that life isn't with us. We're okay now. Better than okay." He started to walk away, then paused. "That text message you sent? I kept it for 3 years. I'd read it sometimes when things got really hard, when I wanted to give up. And you know what? It became my reminder. You said you couldn't do this anymore. But I could. And I did." Daniel walked over to Caleb, took both cereal boxes, and lifted his son onto his shoulders. Caleb squealed with delight, grabbing onto his father's head for balance. As they headed toward the checkout, Caleb called down, "Daddy, who was that lady?" Daniel paused, choosing his words carefully. "Someone I used to know. Someone who was lost for a long time. Is she found now?" Out of the mouths of children. Daniel glanced back. Marissa was still standing there, frozen, watching them leave. She looked small, defeated, but maybe, just maybe, finally understanding. "I don't know, buddy," Daniel said honestly, "but that's not our job to figure out. Our job is to get home, make dinner, and finish building that Lego spaceship before bedtime." "Sound good. Race you to the car," Caleb shouted. And just like that, the moment was over. The ghost of the past had appeared, been acknowledged, and faded back into the background where it belonged. As Daniel buckled Caleb into his car seat and drove toward the house they'd built together, brick by brick, day by day, choice by choice, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Complete peace. The woman who left him at a bus station had wanted to see what she'd lost. And now she knew. She'd lost everything that mattered. Not because Daniel took it from her, but because she walked away from it. Some regrets can be fixed. Some can be healed. Some can be forgiven. But some regrets you simply have to live with. And as Daniel watched Caleb sing along to his favorite song on the radio, sticky hands waving in the air, face lit up with pure joy, he realized something profound. He'd stopped waiting for answers years ago. Stopped waiting for closure. Stopped waiting for anything except the next moment with his son. That text message that destroyed his life had also rebuilt it. Stronger, better, unbreakable. And isn't that what real love does? It doesn't quit when the storm comes. It becomes the shelter. Have you ever realized that the worst thing that happened to you was actually preparing you for the best thing? That's what Daniel understood now. That bus station wasn't the end. It was the beginning. If this story touched you, hit that subscribe button for more emotional tales from King's Folklore. And even if it didn't, come on, subscribe anyway. We'll win you over next time. Drop a comment about a time you had to choose between quitting and pushing forward. Like this video, and let's keep these stories alive. Because every story we tell, it's proof that rock bottom isn't the end. It's just the foundation for something unbreakable. Thanks for watching, and remember, you're stronger than whatever tried to break you.